Okay. All right, interaction with the environment. This is some things that you guys may have missed, and they're all important things. Now, very important here. If you are a civilization that lives on the top of mountains, your entire life is going to be interaction with the environment. Everything you do is going to be, you're going to have to modify your environment in order to live. All right, so the first thing I want to go over is the fact that they lived on the sides of mountains. They had to do things to make it so they could travel easily. So if you look over here on the picture on the right-hand side, you'll see some mountain switchbacks or roads and walkways that they built on the sides of mountains. So you could see here, if you wanted to get down to the major waterways or to roads, you would take these switchbacks all the way up the mountain.
Crazy.
Yeah, but that was life. That was life what?
So if you going downwards, that's not even thick roads. If you fall, you gonna really be interacting with them.
Yeah. Yes, you would be, but although that does happen to some people, they did, that's how they lived. Shh. Yes. Yeah. A lot of people. It depended if they needed to use. Shh. Hey. All right. So if they needed to use the entire able-bodied population, they would. If it was something like they needed water, there was a water shortage, they would. But otherwise, it would just kind of be individuals doing what they needed to do to survive. All right. Earlier, we had a question from Niles about water and where did water come from, or how did they get access to water? Does anybody know where do rivers come from? Where do they start? Yeah. At the top of mountains, because what's at the top of mountains? Snow and glaciers, ice. So basically, the Incas realized that one thing that they can do is they can use the mountain and the water that's at the top of the mountains to their advantage. So they started using irrigation systems. So like I said, they used terrace farming. So here's some terrace farms right here. You can see their different steps. So they would grow crops here and they come out of the ground, okay, and they grow on these little terraces. They knew that if they dug little tunnels from the top of the mountain where the water comes from, they could use it for irrigation. So water would just flow into the bottoms of these terraces and they would essentially water themselves, just using the gravity of and the world around them. They use tools, little hand tools. Yeah. All right. Also, they developed a very, very intricate system of roads. All right. Essentially, there was two major highways. One ran down the west coast of the empire, and one ran down the eastern half of the empire. And then in between, you could see all these little roads that connect the two. They made these so that no matter where you are in the empire, you could make it to the centralized location of Cusco. All right. Now, they made over 25,000 miles of these roads. These roads were pretty wide, pretty easy to travel on. And earlier in the year, we spoke about the United States Interstate Highway System. Does anybody have a guess with how many miles of roads you think are in that? Yeah, go ahead, Justine. 200,000? JC?
I'll go with
Say something.
350,000.
350,000? Anything else?
Let's say 13.
Yeah.
498,000.
All right, so we have 46. Ooh, we have 46,000 total. So, what's amazing is that even though these civilizations were over 500 years apart, okay, they had more than half as many miles of road as we did. So just think about that from an advanced standpoint of, wow, this civilization really was pretty connected. Yes?
How is there a road on water, dude? You see how it goes on water?
Where?
The green one is all in the water.
Oh, I drew that. Does that make it easier to see? Sorry. All right. And then the last way they interacted with the environment, like we've talked about probably 15 times already in this PowerPoint, is they did have those terrace farms where they would even go outside of the cities and just use the entire side of a hill. Okay, there would be terraces on every level. So you think about how much work that would be. Using stone tools to dig out, and they also had gold and silver, but that's not really used much for tools, to dig out those areas. So they also had no large animals like horses. They relied entirely on humans. The biggest animal they had were llamas and alpacas, which are not very big. So mostly humans. All right. For their culture, they were sun worshippers. Okay. And that was their main religion, like we've talked about with the Aztecs. They knew that the sun was very good, and they wanted it to keep coming up every day. So they worshiped the sun. No human sacrifice. And their official language was Quechua. Oops. All right, so basically when you joined the empire, or when you were taken over, you and the people were forced to learn this language. Yes? What's that? Well, so there were other languages spoken, yeah, like native languages, but this was the official language of like the government. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you were speaking with the government, this would be the language you would learn. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. All right. Their economy. They did not have an official. Okay, they did not have an official currency. So meaning that if you were working, let's say you worked for somebody else, you worked on their terrace farms. Okay, you would not be paid with money. They would say, here's some corn, here's some clothes, here's shelter for you to take care of your family. Okay, pretty straightforward. There was no currency as a barter system. All right, and as we said, they did do that terrace farming, which made up a majority of their economy. Does anybody know what their major crop was? Any guesses? Yes.
Corn.
Corn, very good. They called it maize.
No.
Wait, so why is it corn maize?
Also has to say something.
What?
It's pronounced maize.
Thank you. All right. So some interesting things about their corn is their corn's a lot bigger than our corn. You could still, if you go to Peru today, you can still get the corn there, and the kernels are much, much larger than our kernels. Here's just their kernels compared to ours, and then there's a nickel in there for perspective. So you could see how big their kernels are. It would be like, could you imagine the popcorn that you could make with those kernels?
It's not that sweet.
Oh my god, no thing would be so just succulent.
All right, here's another picture of it. All right. So how does such a great civilization come to an end? They had engineering marvels that people still don't understand today. Well, big surprise here, much like the Aztecs, the smallpox got to them and killed 2/3 of their population.
Why don't they just push down like the Spanish off the mountain?
As I said before, as soon as they came in contact with the Spanish, it wasn't the Spanish weapons that killed them, more so the smallpox and the diseases. Please stop talking when I'm trying to talk. I'm begging you. Please stop. All right, so the Spanish conquistadors came in. They were led by Francisco Pizarro, and they spread smallpox throughout the empire. People were, most of the population was wiped out, and then the population that wasn't was enslaved and put in mines. Now, the Incas tried whatever they could to not have to bring their empire to an end. They offered to pay off Francisco Pizarro, and they did pay him off with over $50 million worth of gold. However, the Spanish conquistadors took it and said, fine, we won't kill you, but they lied, and then they killed Atahualpa and anyways killed most of the people and enslaved the rest. So they died because they came across not only diseases, but another culture that wiped them out, much like they did to smaller cultures around them. Yes?
Why, like, how, what's with, like, the smallpox? Is it, like, just on them, or, like, they get, like, a jar of, like, smallpox?
So it's just germs that they bring with them. You're right. So every day, I want you guys to think about right now, you have germs all over your body.
Oh.
You have cold and flu germs are probably on your body right now. Different bacterias are all around. Okay, but your body naturally creates resistance to these different bacterias. Okay? Some strands of it we don't have resistance to, and it makes us sick. Okay? For smallpox, that was an illness that was only in the old world. So when they came across the ocean and they had no resistance to it, it basically everyone who came in contact with it would get sick. Yes?
I think it's like because essentially the Europeans were living in close proximity to like animals like cows and horses, like sheep and stuff. So they were like more immune to it. While like the people in North America and South America weren't used to it, used to the germs because they were living not with that many animals.
Well, yeah, but it was their animals didn't carry it. So like they used llamas on a daily basis to help them with work, but llamas in South America weren't exposed to the disease either. The bacteria just wasn't in that part of the world. Yes?
So the Spanish were like resistant to the smallpox, so they didn't know they had the germs on them. So when they got there,
Yeah, it wasn't on purpose.
um,
Now, when you study U.S. history, you'll see that one of the things that some of the Americans did, like the Europeans or the Americans who came over from Europe, not the Native Americans, when they were trying to push Native Americans off their lands, one thing that some of the people did, it was pretty bad, was they would get the bacteria and put it in a blanket and then give the blanket to the Native Americans, and it would be pretty bad. Yeah. Yes?
I don't see how like the Spanish thing goes, because it's hard. You can't really be immune to smallpox.
Yeah, so they're not immune. They were by no means immune. Spanish people died all the time of smallpox, but they had more immunity to it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Alright, so
It's kind of like think about every day when you go to school, right? Someone in one of your classes every single day will have the flu probably, or a cold, right? And they don't come to school that day. You know, like someone's absent because they're sick. Okay? You have some sort of build up to that. Now let's say you had someone come here who was from a different planet that had brand new diseases, and they came into this room. Your body had never seen that disease before, and probably almost all of us would get sick.
Or someone who had Ebola, and then they came.
Okay, enough.